ash falls like black snow over the limestone streets of Jerusalem. The smell of burning cedar, the wood that once lined the inner walls of Solomon's temple, and assume these men were ancient fortune-tellers. We treat their heavy, complex scrolls like mystical puzzle boxes. We imagine a depressed, fragile man hiding in the shadows of history. He is not a fragile victim. He is the strongest man in the kingdom. He preaches for 40 relentless years and sees almost zero converts. He is beaten. He is locked in wooden stocks in the searing heat. He is thrown into a pitch-black, muddy cistern. His feet sink into the freezing mire. He starves in the dark. He survives just long enough to watch the Babylonian army finally breach the limestone walls. He watches the cedar of the temple burn. He sits in the literal ashes of his home and writes a book of lamentations. But the most important moment of his ministry happens long before the fire. Before the jar is smashed in the valley, God sends Jeremiah on an errand. He tells the prophet to go, down to a small, dusty workshop. Jeremiah walks into the house of a local potter. He watches the artisan's wet, mud-covered hands, working at a spinning wooden wheel. He watches the mud spin. He watches the clay resist the potter's fingers. And the specific Hebrew word God speaks over the spinning wheel changes the way you will read human rebellion for the rest of your life. Jeremiah chapter 18, verses 3 and 4. You can picture the dimly lit workshop. You can hear the rhythmic, wet hum of the spinning wooden wheel. We scour their words for end times chronologies, looking for hidden predictions about modern political events. Assuming their primary job was to give us a roadmap, you can see the heavy mud sliding between the artisan's fingers, rising upward into a beautiful shape. And then, a hard defect in the mud catches against his hand. The vessel is marred. It is spoiled. The English translations tell us the potter simply made it again into another vessel. But the word God uses to identify himself in this moment is the Hebrew yatsar. It is a participle acting as a noun, but its root is deeply, physically active. Yatsar does not just mean to build. It means to squeeze into shape, to mold, to apply relentless, a deliberate pressure to a chaotic lump of earth until it takes on the exact design held in the mind of the artist. To fully grasp the weight of this word, you have to look at the first time it appears in the biblical text. Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. Then the Lord God formed Yatsar, man of dust, from the ground. We are the original clay. We are the earth that he squeezed into shape. That root changes everything about how you read the collapse of Jerusalem, and how you read the collapse of your own perfectly laid plans. Most people assume that when the clay resists, when the vessel is marred, for the 21st century, we assume prophecy is simply a mechanism for predicting the future. But if you look closer and fails to hold its shape, God simply throws it into the trash heap. If you are in a season where the circumstances of your life feel like a sudden, violent collapse, you probably feel exactly that way. You think the pain of the breaking means you have been discarded? You assume a shattered plan means an abandoned life. The crushing is not a rejection. It is a recreation. When the clay is marred, the Yatsar does not walk away from the wheel in disgust. He presses down. He collapses the defective mud back into a lump, and he starts over. He uses the exact same material to build something that will not break. The pain of the Babylonian exile was never meant to be a grave for Israel. It was the crushing pressure of the potter's hand, forcing a resistant, idolatrous people back into the shape they were always meant to hold. God was not destroying them. He was squeezing the idolatry out of them. The vessel of Judah is finally shattered, and the people are dragged in bronze chains across the burning desert. But the story of the clay does not end in the ash of Jerusalem. It picks up by a muddy canal in a foreign empire, where the third voice is waiting. The year is 593 BC. The air is thick with Babylonian dust. A muddy irrigation canal cuts through a massive refugee camp, at the specific Hebrew words they weaponized, at the visceral, physical torment they endured. At the exact moments in history when God deployed them, exiled Israelites sit on the dirt banks. They hang their stringed harps on the willow trees. They weep. Among them sits a man turning 30. His name is Ezekiel. This was supposed to be his year. At 30, a Levite officially enters the priesthood. He was supposed to wear white linen. He was supposed to walk the pristine limestone courtyards of the Jerusalem temple. He was supposed to smell burning frankincense. Instead, he smells stagnant canal water. He wears the dirt of captivity. He has no temple. He has no altar. He has no purpose. Then the wind begins to howl. Ezekiel looks north. A massive storm cloud is rolling rapidly across the desert. Fire flashes continually inside the darkness. The center of the storm glows like gleaming metal in a furnace. The cloud violently descends, and the architecture of heaven tears open over the Babylonian mud. Ezekiel does not see a peaceful angel. He sees a terrifying, biomechanical nightmare. 4 living creatures step out of the fire. They have 4 faces: a man, a lion, an ox, an eagle. They have 4 wings. Underneath them are wheels, massive, towering wheels of glowing beryl, intersecting each other, covered entirely in unblinking eyes. The rims are so high, they induce vertigo. The heat radiating from the fire bakes the damp earth of the canal. The creatures move with blinding speed. They do not turn when they move. You start to see something the fortune teller reading completely ignores. A biblical prophet is not a fortune teller. He is a covenant lawyer. They dart like lightning flashes. The sound of their wings deafens the prophet. It sounds like the roar of rushing waters. It sounds like the voice of the Almighty. Above the terrifying creatures is an expanse like crystal. Above the crystal is a throne of lapis lazuli, and seated on the throne is a figure of fire. Modern readers look at Ezekiel chapter 1 and see science fiction. We see UFOs. We see bizarre, psychedelic hallucinations. We try to draw mechanical blueprints of the wheels. This is not an alien encounter. It is the mobile chariot of the universe. For centuries, Israel believed God was locked inside the temple in Jerusalem. They thought he was bound to a specific zip code. They thought the limestone walls trapped his presence. They assumed that because they were dragged away from the holy city, they were entirely abandoned to the pagan gods of Babylon. The wheels proved them wrong. God did not stay in Jerusalem. He built a chariot of fire, and he rode it straight into the heart of their captivity. Ezekiel falls face down in the dirt. The roar of the rushing wings vibrates through his chest. A voice speaks from the throne, and the specific Hebrew word the prophet uses to describe what is riding on those wheels redefines the nature of God's presence forever. He is not sent to satisfy our curiosity about the end of the world. He is sent to a dying nation with an indictment. Ezekiel chapter 1, verse 28. The prophet is lying with his face pressed into the damp Babylonian dirt, trembling violently, as the roar of the living creatures settles into silence. He looks up and tries to describe the indescribable. He calls it the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. When we read the word glory in English, we immediately think of light. We imagine a luminous aura, a shiny halo, a golden glow radiating outward. We treat it as a visual phenomenon. But the word Ezekiel uses to describe what is riding on the chariot is the Hebrew kavod, and its root has absolutely nothing to do with shining light. It means weight, heaviness. In ancient Hebrew anatomy, the heaviest internal organ was the liver, which derives from the exact same root word. To have kavod was to possess undeniable physical gravity. A king had kavod because his armies were massive. A merchant had kavod because his bags of silver were heavy to carry. When Ezekiel sees the kavod of Yahweh, he is not just seeing something bright. He is feeling a sudden, terrifying pressure drop in the atmosphere. He is encountering a presence so dense, so substantial, so intensely real, that human beings are rendered completely hollow in its proximity, in one hand and a defibrillator in the other, trying to shock the heart of a people back into rhythm with their God. The kavod is not a luminous aura. It is a crushing density. It is the absolute gravity of the Creator entering the space of the created. Later in his scroll, Ezekiel will watch in a terrifying vision as this exact same heavy chariot lifts up from the threshold of the Jerusalem temple. He watches the kavod fly east, abandoning the corrupt priests to the coming Babylonian swords. It is a haunting echo of 1 Samuel chapter 4, when the Ark of the Covenant was captured in battle, and a dying mother named her newborn son Ichabod, literally. Where is the kavod? The weight had departed from Israel. The limestone temple in Jerusalem was left completely hollow. But that root meaning changes everything about what is happening. By the canal in Babylon, the heavy presence did not evaporate into the ether. It relocated. God packed up the massive, undeniable weight of his glory, and he drove it directly into the refugee camp of his captive people. He brought the gravity of heaven to the exiles, who thought they had lost it forever. The chariot wheels landed in the mud. The exiles were not alone, but the fourth major voice does not speak from the dirt. He is standing perfectly still on the polished marble floors of the empire that put them there. The year is 603 BC. The polished marble floor is freezing under leather sandals. The massive throne room is completely silent. We call them the major prophets, not because their message was more important than the others, but simply because their scrolls were longer. The most powerful man on earth is terrified. King Nebuchadnezzar sleeps in Babylonian silk. He wakes up in a cold sweat. He demands answers. The magicians fail. The astrologers panic. The king orders a mass execution. Iron swords are drawn. Blood is about to spill across the capital. Then, a teenager steps forward. His name is Daniel. He is not a street preacher, wearing a splintering wooden yoke. He does not sit by a muddy canal eating rations. He stands in the absolute center of the empire. He breathes the sweet incense of the royal court. He wears the fine linen of a captive politician. He will spend his entire life navigating the deadly politics of pagan kings. He will face a dark den of starving lions. His friends will face a blazing furnace. But today, he just looks at the king. He interprets the nightmare. He describes a towering, terrifying statue. A head of blinding gold, a chest of shining silver, thighs of heavy bronze, legs of crushing iron, feet of brittle clay mixed with iron. The metals represent human empires. Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome. They look invincible. They look permanent. Then, a rock flies through the air. It is cut from a mountain without human hands. It strikes the brittle clay feet with a deafening crash. The gold shatters. The silver shatters. The bronze shatters. The iron shatters. They needed more parchment because the crisis they were dealing with was absolute. They did not just see the future. The wind blows the entire statue away, like dry summer chaff. The rock becomes a mountain. It fills the entire earth. Decades later, an older Daniel has his own nightmare. He stands by the great sea. He watches the dark water violently boil. He feels the cold wind blowing from the four corners of the earth. He watches four terrifying beasts rise from the foam. A lion with eagle wings. A bear with ribs crushed in its bloody teeth. A leopard with four heads. A nameless beast with iron teeth stamping the earth. They devour. They trample. They break the nations in pieces. Most people read the book of Daniel and immediately build complex mathematical charts. We count the toes on the statue. We count the horns on the beasts. We try to predict the exact date the sky will split open. Daniel is not giving us a mathematical puzzle. He is exposing a spiritual reality. The book of Daniel is not a schedule of end-time events. It is a devastating diagnosis of human power. Every empire built by human hands eventually becomes a beast. It looks like shining gold on the outside. It operates like a ravenous monster on the inside. It consumes. It crushes. It demands absolute worship. And it is completely, fundamentally fragile. The stone is coming. They saw the devastating reality of the present. And they saw what happens when a holy God shares space with an unholy people. The Son of Man is walking on the clouds. The Ancient of Days takes his seat. The beasts will be thrown into the fire. 4 prophets. 4 voices. 4 desperate attempts to save a people. But they all point to the exact same ultimate conclusion. An earthly throne sits terrifyingly empty, and a prophet sees the cosmic throne is occupied by a fire that purifies everything it touches. A red-hot coal sears a human mouth and the impurities are burned away so the man can finally speak. A baked clay pot violently shatters in a dark ravine, and a blind nation is warned of its unfixable ruin. A potter crushes marred clay on a spinning wooden wheel, and the mud is squeezed back into a perfect design. A refugee sits weeping by a muddy canal in Babylon, and a terrifying chariot brings the heavy weight of heaven straight into the dirt. A giant metal statue collapses under a flying stone, and a captive teenager exposes the absolute fragility of human empires. A roaring beast rises from a boiling sea, and the Ancient of Days takes his seat to strip its power away forever. 4 voices, 1 unbreaking covenant. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the wheel, chokes the summer air. A king with no eyes is dragged by bronze chains toward a foreign desert. To feel the weight of what these 4 men actually did, you cannot start with abstract theology. You cannot start with timelines or charts. Not the terrifying, eye-covered wheels of Ezekiel's chariot, but the simple, spinning wooden wheel in the dimly lit workshop of Jeremiah's potter. The wet, mud-covered hands of the artisan pressing down into the resistant earth. If you are in a season where the circumstances of your life feel like a sudden, violent collapse, you probably feel like you have been discarded. You look at the jagged edges of your plans, the broken pieces of what you thought you were building, and you assume the artist has walked away from the table in disgust. The pressure on your life is not a punishment. It is a formation. The crushing is not a rejection. It is a recreation. The Yetzar does not throw the marred clay into the ash heap. He collapses it back into a lump under his own fingers, and he uses the exact same material to build something that will finally hold its shape. If this reached something in you, subscribe and leave a comment. Even 1 word helps. Share this with someone who feels like their life has just shattered on the wheel. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who rides his chariot into the darkest exile walk with you through yours and bring you out, carrying a weight of glory you could not have received any other way. You have to start in a room filled with smoke. In the exact year, a beloved king takes his final breath. We have an image in our modern minds when we hear the word prophet. A man on a busy city corner. A cardboard sign, black marker bleeding through the cardboard. A megaphone screaming about the end of the world. Or we imagine a mystic in a dark room. A trance. A cryptic vision of distant future empires. We project these images backward onto the ancient text. We read the major prophets and try to extract data. We want a schedule of coming events. But the Hebrew text uses a very specific word for these men. Nabi. It means a mouthpiece, an envoy, an authorized speaker. To understand a Nabi, you have to completely forget the psychic fortune teller. You have to picture a courtroom. The heavy oak doors swing open. The wooden gavel slams against the desk. The prosecuting attorney stands up. He holds a thick, bound contract. He reads the original terms. He points to the broken clauses. He demands a reckoning. That is the biblical prophet. At Mount Sinai, God and Israel signed a treaty. It was written on stone. It was sealed with blood. The terms were brutally clear. The covenant, the kingdom, the city where heaven was supposed to meet earth. It is all collapsing into dust and ruin. Worship Yahweh alone. Protect the widow. Feed the orphan. Do not rig the economic scales. Israel broke every single clause. They dragged foreign idols into the holy temple. They ignored the hungry sleeping on the cold limestone streets. They rigged the marketplace scales to cheat the poor. They built altars in the valleys and made them slick with the blood of their own children. So God sends the lawyers. The prophets are prosecuting attorneys for the Sinai covenant. They point to the text. They point to the streets. They scream breach of contract. Prophecy is not a crystal ball for the curious. It is a mirror for the rebellious. But a Nabi does not just deliver a dry legal brief. They deliver a heartbeat. They do not just speak the message. They have to embody it. They become divine performance artists. They smash baked clay pots into jagged shards in front of city leaders. They strap heavy wooden ox yokes to their own necks. They shave their hair with sharp iron swords and scatter it to the wind. They eat literal scrolls of parchment. They are forced to feel what God feels. Because the God of the Bible is not a detached, unfeeling cosmic force. He is a betrayed husband watching his bride walk away. He is a shattered father watching his children destroy themselves. The experiment of Israel appears to be entirely over. And yet, speaking over the sound of the collapsing walls, there are voices. The prophet is the physical vessel meant to carry that unimaginable divine grief into the human world. Their bodies become the megaphone. This is why their books are so exhausting to read. This is why the cadence is so frantic. You are reading the desperate attempts of a God trying everything to stop his people from walking off a cliff. And the greatest of these prophetic interventions begins in the year King Uzziah dies. It is a year of national panic. It is a year the earthly throne sits empty. But the first of our four major voices does not start his ministry in the streets. He is pulled into a different room entirely. And the detail he notices there will redefine the rest of his life. The year is 740 BC. A 52-year reign of unprecedented military and economic stability has just ended in a stone tomb. And the geopolitical wolves are circling. King Uzziah is dead. The earthly throne in Jerusalem sits terrifyingly empty. Isaiah walks into the temple precincts. He expects the familiar limestone walls, the bronze basins, the heavy scent of crushed frankincense bleeding into the summer air. But the physical architecture suddenly shatters, giving way to a staggering, multi-dimensional reality. The veil between the earthly replica and the cosmic control room is ripped away. One stands barefoot in a pristine temple courtyard, watching a vision of smoke and fire, decades before the invasion even begins. And Isaiah finds himself standing in the actual throne room of the universe. The throne he sees is not empty. It is occupied. The being seated upon it is so massive, so overwhelmingly immense, that just the hem of his royal robe completely buries the floor of the temple. Hovering above him are seraphim, literally translated. The burning ones, 6 winged creatures composed of pure, terrifying flame. As they shout to one another, the sound waves are so violent, they cause the massive wooden doorposts of the temple to physically vibrate. The room rapidly fills with thick, suffocating smoke. This is not a quiet moment of spiritual meditation. It is an ambush of divine trauma. Most people assume encountering God brings instant peace. Isaiah feels the exact opposite. He realizes, with sudden, horrifying clarity, that he is completely incompatible with the environment he is standing in. A man with dirty lips, from a society of dirty lips, standing in the unshielded presence of absolute purity. He screams out that he is undone, a Hebrew word that means to be dismantled, silenced, or destroyed. He expects to die. Instead, one of the burning creatures plunges toward the altar. It takes a pair of heavy iron tongs, reaches into the fire, and pulls out a glowing, red-hot coal. The creature flies directly at Isaiah and presses the burning rock against the prophet's mouth. Another walks through the marketplace, wearing a heavy, splintering wooden ox yoke around his neck, weeping in front of the merchants. You can almost hear the hiss of heat, the searing of flesh. It is agonizing. It is painful, but it is not destructive. The fire does not burn him alive. It burns the impurities away. Only after the coal sears his lips is Isaiah given his commission. He is sent out to a nation that is deaf, blind, and stumbling toward exile. He is sent to tell them that the Assyrian war machine is coming, that the trees of the nation will be chopped down and burned, but that a holy seed will somehow survive in the stump. Isaiah will spend the next 40 years delivering a massive 66-chapter masterclass in geopolitical warning and messianic hope. But the entirety of his message, every prophecy about a suffering servant, every warning about coming armies, every promise of a new heavens and new earth is anchored in the chant he heard, vibrating through the smoke of that cosmic throne room. And to understand what Isaiah is trying to tell us, you have to look closely at the specific Hebrew word the burning creatures were shouting. The chant echoing in the smoke of the temple is not a song of quiet reverence. It is a warning siren. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. The seraphim cry out to one another over the throne. Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. A third sits by a muddy irrigation canal in a Babylonian refugee camp, staring at a terrifying storm cloud rolling in from the north. In ancient Hebrew grammar, you do not use punctuation to emphasize a point. You use repetition. To say something twice is to underline it, but to say something 3 times is the ultimate superlative. It elevates the concept to the absolute highest degree of reality. The word the burning creatures are screaming in the smoke is the Hebrew kadosh, and its etymology shatters our modern, comfortable assumptions. The root of kadosh does not originally mean to be good. It means to cut, to sever, to separate, to be set apart and entirely distinct from everything else in existence. When applied to God, kadosh means He is completely other. He is in a category of one. He is severed from the limitations of time, untainted by the decay of the physical universe, utterly distinct from the brokenness of humanity. It is the same root word used in Leviticus 20:26, where God tells a wandering people, "You shall be holy to me, for I the Lord am holy, and have separated you from the peoples." To be holy is to be cut off from the culture of death. But modern readers have sanitized the concept. We have shrunk it down to fit inside our Sunday school classrooms. We think being holy just means being a nice person. A fourth stands perfectly still in a royal court, facing the throne of a terrifying new empire. For men, we think it means keeping your hands clean, avoiding bad language, and following the rules. But the seraphim are covering their faces, because proximity to this attribute is lethal. Holiness is not a checklist of moral behaviors. It is the blinding reality of a completely uncreated God. It is a fire that must either purify everything it touches, like the coal on Isaiah's lips, or consume everything that refuses to change. If feeling the weight of these ancient words is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week, we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the burning creatures keep flying. Isaiah takes his purified lips and preaches for 40 years, warning the nation that their lack of holiness will invite destruction. But they do not listen. They double down on their idols. A century passes. The Assyrian threat fades. But a new, darker empire rises from the dust of Babylon. The limestone walls of Jerusalem are finally about to fall. And God calls a new prophet, a man whose assignment is not to watch a throne in heaven, but to watch the kingdom on earth shatter into jagged pieces. 4 distinct moments in the agonizing death and miraculous survival of a nation. Most people read the books of Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. A century passes. The Assyrian threat fades. A darker empire rises from the eastern desert. Babylon is coming. Jerusalem is entirely blind. The kings are arrogant. The temple priests are corrupt. God reaches for a teenager. Jeremiah is young. He is terrified. He begs God to pick someone else. God refuses. God touches his mouth. God tells him he will be a fortified city, an iron pillar, a bronze wall against the kings of Judah. And then the physical theater begins. Jeremiah walks through the bustling marketplace. He straps a massive, heavy wooden ox yoke to his own neck. The rough wood splinters against his skin. The crowd stares. The priests mock. He wears it for days. He is a walking, breathing billboard of the coming Babylonian captivity. Another day. He buys a baked clay jar. He walks into the valley of Hinnom. This is the dark, ash-choked ravine outside the city walls where the Israelites are burning their own children in sacrifice to foreign gods. He gathers the elders of the city. He holds the jar high. He drops it. The baked clay shatters against the rocks. The sharp crack echoes through the valley. Jeremiah tells them the truth. Jerusalem will shatter just like the jar. Unfixable, broken beyond human repair. We call Jeremiah the weeping prophet.